At 76, Steve Perry finally pulls back the curtain, not to talk about journey or fame or charts, but about the 6 voices that shaped his soul. From gospel tenderness to rock defiance, they weren't just influences, they were lifelines. Their echoes still live in every note he sings. Moment of reckoning. Steve at 76 looks back. At 76, Steve Perry has reached an age where the past doesn't just whisper, it echoes. For decades, fans have known him as the golden voice of Journey, the man who carried arenas on the wings of Don't Stop Believin' and broke hearts with the trembling ache of Faithfully. But behind the power and the high notes, there was always another story, one less about being heard and more about what he heard in others. Now, at this stage in his life, Perry has chosen to tell that story. Not about the stages or the fame, but about the voices that shaped him. The 6 singers who carved themselves into his DNA, each one a compass point in the map of his own artistry. Why now? Why at 76? Because time sharpens the truth, Perry confessed. Decades of health battles, of stepping away from music, of returning with both reverence and reluctance, have given him a clarity he once lacked. You start to see what really mattered, what really stayed with you. For years, fans thought they knew who influenced him. Critics pointed to his gospel roots, his soaring tenor lineage, his rock contemporaries. But Perry insists that what they heard on records was only half the story. The other half, the foundation beneath the range, came from these 6 singers. This isn't about idols, he explained. It's about survival. These are the singers who got me through. The weight in his tone isn't about spectacle. It's humility, awe, a recognition that his own legacy, immortal as it might seem, was built on the backs of others who risked, who bared themselves, who dared to sing differently. And so, for the first time, Perry speaks their names. Each one revealed not with fanfare, but with reverence. Each one carrying not just admiration, but a story. The first name, his number 6, comes quietly. A hidden spark, a singer whose fire mirrored Perry's own humble beginnings. Their voice wasn't the loudest, wasn't the flashiest, but it carried a tone that lit a flame deep in his soul. With a pause, Perry leans in and whispers, "This one. This was the spark I almost missed." The hidden spark. The 6th singer Steve Perry names does not arrive with a roar. Instead, it comes with a hush, like the first note of a song you didn't know you needed. For Perry, the singer was Sam Cooke. "Sam was the beginning," Perry admitted. "I heard him, and something in me shifted forever." Cooke's early career was as humble as Perry's own, born from gospel, shaped by community, lifted slowly into the national spotlight. What struck Steve wasn't just the songs, but the way Cooke could pour his soul into simplicity. "I listened to A Change Is Gonna Come, and I remember thinking, this isn't singing, this is breathing truth." Cooke's phrasing, elegant, effortless, unforced, became a model for Perry. Journey fans might hear the echo of that style in the way Perry leans into vowels, stretches a note until it trembles on the edge of breaking, or allows silence to speak louder than volume. Sam sang as if every word had weight, Perry reflected. It made me want to treat songs with the same respect. There's a particular memory Perry returns to often, sitting alone with headphones late at night, replaying Cooke's live performances. He wasn't studying range or pitch. He was studying truth. The way a single line could rise from sorrow to hope in the space of a breath. "That's when I realized singing wasn't about perfection," Perry said. "It was about connection, Calling Cook his sixth wasn't about diminishing him. Quite the opposite. Perry said the number carried meaning. 6 is foundation. Without him, there is no house to build. Sam Cooke was that foundation. The nearly missed, quietly powerful spark that told a shy kid from California that it was possible to open your mouth and let something bigger than yourself come out. He didn't just inspire me, Perry confessed. He gave me permission. From Cook's quiet spark, Perry's memory shifts to another figure. This time a rising star whose voice riveted him at first listen, altering the course of his own sound forever. That name would become his fifth, The rising star who riveted. The fifth singer Steve Perry names doesn't arrive as an echo from history, but as a lightning strike, the kind of voice that jolted him into seeing what was possible. The name? Aretha Franklin. Perry remembers the first time he heard her on the radio. It was a gray California afternoon, and he was just a young man chasing dreams that felt far away. Then, Aretha's voice came crackling through the speakers, and suddenly, the air felt different. She stopped me cold, Perry recalled. The radio wasn't background anymore. It was a lifeline. Her voice reached into me, like she knew every fear, every desire, every prayer I hadn't spoken out loud. It wasn't just the power of her singing. It was the authority, the way Aretha seemed to bend the world around her. She didn't just perform songs, she possessed them. And for Steve, that possession was riveting. Aretha taught me what it means to command a note, he said. She could hit you with a hurricane and then break you with a whisper. He remembers sitting up late at night with headphones, listening to A Natural Woman. Each phrase climbed and fell with precision, but also with wild abandon. Aretha made the song feel infinite. I thought to myself, if she can give everything in a song, then why can't I? That revelation became a turning point in Journey's sound. Perry began leaning harder into the emotional delivery of lyrics, stretching vowels, adding ache into lines where none existed before. Fans may not have known it at the time, but the ghost of Aretha hovered in the wings every time Perry let his voice tremble with vulnerability or roar with defiance. She dared me to stop hiding, he confessed. She made me believe that my voice could be both instrument and testimony. Even now, decades later, Perry admits there are nights when he sits alone and plays Aretha's records not as a student anymore, but as a fellow pilgrim. She reminds me, he whispered, that music isn't about perfection. It's about salvation. And with that memory, his voice quieted. Because after Aretha came another singer, not one who mirrored him, but one who challenged him. Someone whose fearlessness made him question his own courage. The trailblazer who challenged him. At number 4, Steve Perry names a singer whose presence felt less like comfort and more like a gauntlet thrown at his feet, Janis Joplin. Janis terrified me, Perry admitted, not because of her voice, but because of her freedom. Where Perry had grown up learning discipline and control, Joplin shattered all of that in a single scream. She was chaos, fire, vulnerability stripped raw, and when Perry first heard her, he felt both awe and intimidation. She sang like she had nothing to lose, he said, and I thought, am I that brave? Janis wasn't polished, but that was the point. She redefined what a voice could be, not about range, not about clarity, but about truth at any cost. Watching her live on grainy footage, Perry saw a woman possessed by sound. Her stage presence was an explosion, her phrasing unpredictable, her honesty undeniable. She forced me to look at myself, he recalled. I had to ask, am I really giving everything I have? Or am I still holding back? In that tension, Perry found transformation. Janis didn't just inspire him, she dared him. She became a voice in his head whenever he stepped up to the mic. Push harder, risk more, don't play it safe. She showed me that imperfection could be perfect, Perry said, that a cracked note could carry more soul than a flawless one. Journey's live shows, especially in the late 70s and early 80s, carried Joplin's fingerprints. The way Perry let his voice fracture at emotional peaks, the way he refused to sand down the rough edges of passion, those were lessons from Janis. She gave me permission to be vulnerable, he confessed, and vulnerability, I learned, is where the magic is. By the end of his reflection, Perry smiled faintly. Because, while Janis had challenged him to give more, the next singer, the one in third place, had taught him what it meant to feel more. Not through fire, but through resonance so intimate it felt like an echo inside his own chest. This one, Perry whispered, sings inside me. The emotional resonator. By the time Steve Perry reaches the third name, his voice softens. This isn't admiration from a distance. This is something closer, almost haunting. When they sing, he says, it's like they're singing inside me. The name he speaks is Marvin Gaye. For Perry, Marvin Gaye was more than a singer. He was an atmosphere. His voice carried warmth and ache, intimacy and urgency. He could whisper one moment and plead the next, each phrase charged with a kind of emotional electricity that made listeners feel like he was in the room with them, singing to them alone. I remember hearing, "What's going on?" Perry said, and I had to sit down. It wasn't just a song. It was an entire world wrapped in a voice. What struck Perry most was Marvin's balance of tenderness and truth. His phrasing was clean, yet never cold. His vibrato trembled not with weakness, but with humanity. Marvin made sorrow sound elegant, and joy sound fragile. He didn't just perform emotions, he embodied them. He showed me that you don't need to shout to be heard, Perry explained. Sometimes the quietest plea is the one that breaks you. For Steve, the influence was transformative. Journey's ballads, especially songs like Open Arms and Send Her My Love, carried echoes of Marvin's style. The restraint, the vulnerability, the willingness to let a single word hang heavy in the air until it cracked the heart open. There are still nights, Perry admitted, when I play his songs alone and I feel like I'm being reminded how small and human I am. And I love that. Though Marvin Gaye sits at number 3, Perry insists the ranking is arbitrary. In truth, he said, Marvin eclipses the ranks. He lives right here. He pressed his hand to his chest. And with that, his memory turned toward another singer, one not just admired, but leaned on. A voice that became medicine during his darkest hours. The muse who rebuilt his soul. At number 2, Steve Perry's tone changes again. Quiet, reverent, almost prayerful. This was no casual influence. This was a lifeline. The singer, Etta James. Etta saved me, Perry confessed. Her voice was forged in pain, and yet it carried such strength. When I was struggling, when I felt like I couldn't find my way back to music, Etta was the one who pulled me through. Etta's story was one of struggle and resilience, personal battles, comebacks, and a voice that bore the scars of every hardship. For Perry, that made her singing all the more powerful. She never hid the cracks. he said. She sang through them. And in doing so, she made brokenness sound beautiful. Perry leaned on her records during years when his own career went quiet, when grief and loss weighed him down. Tracks like I'd Rather Go Blind and At Last became more than songs. They were reminders that music could still hold him, heal him, call him back. When she sang, I believed her, Perry said, and that belief gave me strength to try again. In Etta's voice, he found not just inspiration, but restoration. She reminded him that artistry is not about never falling. It's about standing again, carrying the wounds, and still choosing to sing. She rebuilt my soul, Perry whispered. But as powerful as Etta was in his life, there was still one voice above all others. A singer who wasn't just influence or inspiration or medicine. This was the voice that, in Perry's words, completed me. And that final name was still waiting. The love of a lifetime, vocally. When Steve Perry finally speaks the name of his number one, he doesn't rush. There's a pause, a breath, as if saying it aloud carries weight he's been holding for decades. This, he says softly, is the voice that completed me. The name, Elvis Presley. For Perry, Elvis was more than a cultural icon. He was the first singer who made Steve believe that a human voice could be both divine and dangerous. As a boy, hearing Presley's recordings on a scratchy radio, Perry felt chills that never left him. Elvis could take a simple line and make it eternal, Perry reflected. When he sang, it wasn't just sound, it was feeling. He carried joy, sorrow, desire, and defiance in the same breath. What struck Perry most was Elvis's range of emotion. One moment, he could whisper tenderness in a ballad like Can't Help Falling in Love. The next, he was spitting fire in Suspicious Minds. He wasn't confined by genre. He was gospel, rock, blues, and country all at once. He gave me permission to mix worlds, Perry admitted, to not be afraid of crossing boundaries. There was a performance that marked him forever, watching Elvis's '68 comeback special on television. The leather-clad king sat hunched with a guitar, laughing between takes, then launching into a rendition of If I Can Dream that shook Perry to his core. I sat there in silence, Steve remembered. I thought, this is it. This is what a voice is supposed to do. Not entertain, not impress, but break you open. Perry carried that revelation into his own career. The passion behind Separate Ways, the ache inside Faithfully, the fire of Don't Stop Believin'. All of it bore Presley's fingerprints, his intensity, his vulnerability, his refusal to settle for safe. Elvis sang what I couldn't yet express, Perry confessed. He gave me the courage to try. And so, at number one, Perry places not just his greatest influence, but his greatest love. Not a peer, not an idol, but the singer who made him feel complete. He didn't just inspire me, Perry said. He became part of me. Common thread: what these 6 singers share. After naming all 6, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, Janis Joplin, Marvin Gaye, Etta James, Elvis Presley, Steve Perry leaned back with a wistful smile. The weight of the confession wasn't in the order, but in the pattern. What ties them together, he said quietly, isn't genre. It isn't range. It's truth. Each singer carried a distinct gift, yet together they formed a mosaic of what Perry himself would become. Sam gave him foundation, teaching him to honor simplicity and never overlook the beauty of a single unadorned line. Aretha gave him authority, showing him that a voice could not just fill a room, but command it. bend its atmosphere with fire and reverence. Janis gave him courage, daring him to risk imperfection, to let the cracks speak as loudly as the polished tones. Marvin gave him resonance, teaching him that restraint can carry as much power as release. Etta gave him healing, pulling him back from silence when grief nearly swallowed him whole. And Elvis gave him completion, reminding him that a single voice can carry not just notes, but the entire human story. They all sang without fear, Perry explained. Even in pain, even in struggle, they sang as if the truth was worth the cost. For Steve, that is the thread that binds them. Fearlessness in honesty. None of them hid. None of them disguised their scars. They put their wounds into melody, their triumphs into phrasing, their humanity into sound. And that, Perry insists, is why their voices endure. Fans who listen closely can hear these echoes stitched into Perry's work. The aching vibrato that drifts like smoke in his ballads. That is Marvin. The commanding belts that lift choruses into anthems. That is Aretha. The cracks that split through lines at emotional peaks. That is Janis. The prayer-like intimacy of his quietest verses. That is Sam. The raw ache that creeps into even his strongest notes. That is Etta. And the dramatic weight, the sense that every song is a story bigger than the singer. That is Elvis. Together, they became the colors of his palette. Each influence like a brushed stroke, blending into something recognizably his, yet undeniably theirs. They weren't just influences, Perry said. They were lifelines. And that, perhaps, is the lesson he wants his audience to take away. That the greatest voices are not defined by perfection, but by honesty. That a singer's strength comes not from hiding flaws, but from daring to reveal them. That every note can carry scars, and those scars can be beautiful. They gave me permission, Perry whispered. Permission to be broken, permission to be brave, permission to be true. He paused, then added one final thought. Every note I've ever sung carries a piece of them. And maybe, just maybe, that's why people hear more than just me when I sing. And in naming them, Perry revealed not just who inspired him, but how his own legendary voice was born from their chorus. Ripples through time. Influence on journey and beyond. When Steve Perry speaks of his 6 guiding voices, he isn't just telling personal stories. He's tracing a lineage that stretches straight into the heart of rock history. People think Journey was just about big choruses, he said. But every song I sang carried someone else's echo. Take Don't Stop Believin'. The opening verse, restrained, almost whispered, owes itself to Sam Cooke's simplicity. The swelling chorus, commanding and unrelenting, echoes Aretha Franklin's authority. When Perry lets his voice crack with fire in the final repeats, you can hear Janis Joplin's wildness urging him forward. In Open Arms, the hushed delivery carries the tenderness of Marvin Gaye. In Faithfully, the ache of every line comes from the soul-healing example of Etta James. And in the theatrical crescendos of Separate Ways, the spirit of Elvis Presley looms large, teaching Perry to deliver not just notes, but drama. Critics and fans alike often praised Perry for his unique style, but in truth, his uniqueness was a mosaic of those before him. I wasn't inventing something new, he admitted. I was honoring what they already gave me. That ripple extended beyond Journey. Perry's emotive tenor influenced entire generations of rock singers, from arena frontmen to power ballad icons of the 80s and 90s. Bands that chased his sound didn't always realize they were also chasing Cook, Franklin, Joplin, Gay, James, and Presley. "They shaped me," Perry said, "and through me, they shaped everyone who listened." Even now, decades after Perry stepped away from Journey, their presence lingers. Fans still find themselves transported by the ache in his voice, even if they don't know the trail of spirits standing behind him. "The voices that shaped me," Perry explained, "are still shaping listeners, whether they realize it or not." That's the ripple of influence, a whisper from Sam, a cry from Janis, a sigh from Marvin, a roar from Elvis, carried through Perry, carried through rock, carried into eternity. Legacy, Steve's final message to these icons. When Steve Perry finished speaking their names, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, Janis Joplin, Marvin Gaye, Etta James, Elvis Presley, he sat in silence. The room seemed to hold its breath with him. His eyes softened, his shoulders eased, and his voice dropped to a near whisper. This was not just admiration. It was farewell, gratitude, confession, all at once. "I wouldn't be me without them," he said slowly. "Every note I ever sang is theirs, too." For a moment, Perry seemed to be elsewhere, back in smoky rooms where he first heard their records, back in concert halls where he channeled their lessons, back in lonely nights when their voices pulled him through. He imagined addressing each one directly, as if they were standing there before him. To Sam Cooke, thank you for giving him foundation, for teaching him that even the simplest phrase can hold eternity if sung with truth. To Aretha Franklin, thank you for teaching him power and authority, for proving that the human voice can be both fire and balm. To Janis Joplin, thank you for daring him to risk imperfection, to let the cracks bleed into beauty. To Marvin Gaye, thank you for resonance and restraint, for reminding him that quiet ache can sometimes speak louder than thunder. To Etta James, thank you for rebuilding him when he was lost, for showing him that brokenness itself can become music. To Elvis Presley, thank you for showing him the vastness of possibility, that a voice could hold rebellion, tenderness, and prayer, all in the same breath. "They carried me when I couldn't carry myself," Perry confessed. "They gave me not just songs, but survival." This was not abstract. He recalled long nights off the road, when grief pressed too heavily, when he questioned if he would ever sing again. And it was in those moments that these 6 voices became his lifeline, reminding him that artistry isn't about perfection or applause, but about endurance, courage, and truth. His hope now, at 76, is that listeners don't just celebrate him, but trace the roots. He urges fans to revisit those original recordings, to sit with Sam's gospel tenderness, Aretha's thunder, Janis's fire, Marvin's velvet ache, Etta's unflinching honesty, Elvis's immortal breadth. "Feel what I felt," he said. "Honor the lineage that made my voice possible. Don't just stop with me," Perry pleaded. "Go back. Listen to them. Let them change you too." For Perry, that is the essence of legacy. Not statues, not trophies, not headlines, but echoes carried forward. Voices teaching voices, souls handing down courage across time. He leaned back then, eyes glistening with a mixture of joy and sorrow, and spoke one last sentence, a line that seemed to carry the entire weight of his journey. "These 6 singers live on, not just in my heart, but in every note I will ever sing." And with that, the curtain fell, not on an ending, but on a torch passed forward. A torch that burns brighter with every echo. A fire that will outlive him, carried in the next singer brave enough to let their soul pour out through song. He speaks their names: Cooke, Franklin, Joplin, Gaye, James, Presley. Each gave him foundation, fire, courage, healing, or completion. Together, they created the voice of a legend. At 76, Steve Perry confesses, "I've never sung alone." And when his voice fades, their echoes will keep singing through him, through us, forever.